Hello and welcome back, and that is right. Today I want to talk about Black Friday promotions on DIY NAS motherboards. It's a subject that we talk about on the channel quite a lot. These are motherboards designed for those that want to use your true NAS, your Unraid, your Zimmer OS and more. But a quick disclaimer out the gate. Those that have followed the channel for a long time know that around this time of year, what we do is we use Black Friday to fundraise the things we do at the channel. The videos, the articles, the free support sections, the community forum, that kind of stuff. And we do this by making a video like this where we don't have any adverts, we don't use YouTube's ads and all that stuff at the beginning. But what we do is we go through different products that are on offer that we genuinely think are good, legitimate products and or are good enough promos to justify their existence on this video. And if you're interested in any of the products, they're linked all below, and therefore we get a small commission on anything you purchase, and it means you support content creators and you also get something that you were looking for in the first place. But without further ado, let's crack onto my laptop screen here. And as you can see, we've got the NAS Compare page, we've got the deals page and all the listing stuff there. We've already talked about this in other videos, I'm not going to bore you with it. Everything we're talking about today is all listed on these websites. But for those of you that are looking at building your own NAS for multimedia purposes and you haven't already got one, if you're looking at Plex, they are running a promo right now where you can get 40% off a monthly, annual or lifetime subscription. And that's a pretty substantial drop for a lifetime license for a Plex Pass that's running at the moment. And for those of you that are considering Unraid for your DIY NAS build, Unraid is running a 25% price drop on all three tiers of their platform. However, either that website is getting hit pretty hard or currently the offers are being listed but there's something wrong in the back end. But every time I try, let's see if we can try that again, their promo page is still erroring 404. It is a promo they are going to be running. They emailed me about it earlier this week. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to be live on their page. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, it is. And it is affecting all three tiers along with $15 on their merch store. But let's crack straight on. A brand that we talked about on the channel numerous times in the past, CWWK or Changwang, the brand where all three of the MoBos here on the table are covered in today's video, but also we've reviewed here on the channel, have got numerous promos, both on their own e-retail outlet and on AliExpress. If we go to their own website, pretty much all of their half-decent NAS motherboards are now on offer. Probably the pick of the litter for me. Number one is this one. It's an older, slightly out there CPU, but it is a beefier MoBo here to play with, again, a lot to play with on the board, but still nonetheless still arriving in quite a small factor, down to just $154.93. This takes advantage of an Intel i5, again, an older generation one, but still supporting 8 SATA bays, a couple of M.2s, and arriving with those NICs there for us to play with and make sure that we've got 2 times 2.5 gigabit networking. Now that's important because when I've been going through different motherboards for this video, I didn't set myself too many hard rules, but one of the rules I really wouldn't budge on is there has to be at least 2 network interfaces and they have to be at least 2.5 gigabit networking. Because whether you're going to be using this for multimedia or Proxmox, where network connectivity is more about failover than it is about actual massive bandwidth, or you're looking at TrueNAS or Unraid when you want to scale up towards 10 GBE, I wanted to make sure that we are looking at least 2.5 GBE across 2 ports there. And we don't justify the usage of, just assuming because we have a PCIe upgrade that we can just use that. We're not factoring that in. But moving towards slightly more current systems, we can talk about this one. This is one of the motherboards that I've already got here on the table. This is taking advantage of a 12405H CPU, an Intel i5, and it's also got 2 10 gig SFP connectors there on board. Again, if you get it directly from their site right now, it's $300.25, and that even includes the SFP cables for you to take advantage of, I believe it's 8 different hard drive bays being directly connected into those SFF connectors. And by the way, that is one of the SFF connectors that takes advantage of the wider 8654 connectivity. And we talked about it on the channel before, the range of adapters currently available from this brand that allow you to add further SATA bays, add further M.2 NVMe bays, and even combo adapters that allow you to scale up quite significantly in your DIY NAS build. Keeping in mind, again, this is an MITX board, so if you go for a big old case and you've got a small MoBo, there's a lot of airflow, but also a lot of room to add those adapter cards. Now, if we head over to NAS Compares, he says, plug in his own website, we have listed not only a number of the different motherboards that I'm going to talk about today, along with a bunch of the different promos, but also a list of promotional codes that you can use at AliExpress right now in order to get more discounts. So scale up and use the one that's more appropriate to the amount that you might be spending if you choose to shop at AliExpress there. But if we head over to Amazon, there isn't a lot of DIY NAS MoBo offers currently available on Amazon right now. Maybe there will be on actual Black Friday, but this is probably the only one I could find that was meaningful. There are motherboard offers, by the way, but again, that steadfast rule about having at least two 2.5 gig network connections had a tendency to kill a lot of the options. I've even discounted motherboards that have only got one 10G, because you need to have that failover as well, or at least priority of service across those ports. But this is that 8-bay board. This is taking advantage of two SFF connectors for 4 fan out each. And this MoBo at 168 includes a CPU, that's the N100 CPU, so not the Twin Lake, but the Alder Lake, and SODIMM on one memory slot there, non-ECC, by the way. But again, that is a 10 gig network MITX motherboard. And again, that is one of the motherboards we have here on the table, one that I've used a considerable number of times. There's also the M150 that we're going to talk about later on that has 3 M.2 slots as well. So moving forward from there, we head over to AliExpress. Now, AliExpress, although there are a lot of listings I'm going to talk about, as you can see from the top of the screen there, it's this particular listing here that is absolutely riddled in every single one of these. Now, not all of these are a decent enough promo, I will say that. However, a lot of them, depending on the level of input financially and output you want in terms of hardware and efficiency on a DIY NAS MoBo, if you're looking for a nice, simple, integrated CPU MoBo combo, there is a lot to love here on this offering from Old Friends Grocery Store Trader. What a name. Also keep in mind, depending on where you are in the world, because all of the listings I'm going to talk about today are globally available, keep in mind it will affect the shipping. This is one of the few listings on today's video where I'm actually talking about shipping costs, because in almost every other case that I've found, it's free delivery. This is one of the few that isn't, so factor that in. But you can offset that, remember, by taking advantage of promo offers and taking advantage of some of those codes that I previously mentioned. But again, whether as you go low and old, like this one, utilizing an N400 CPU, which is frigging ancient, but it does scale up through some of the earlier iterations of 2020 to 2022 Celeron series, and then into the Alder Lake and Twin Lake. Moving forward, there is that N150 10 gig board there. Again, this is the one that only has 2 M.2 NVMe slots on board, but keep in mind with these 2 M.2s, this has alongside it those multiple 6 SATA outputs there. It's not taking advantage of SFF there. So you haven't got to start getting new fan out cables to start adding on your storage. It includes a CPU but no memory, but $210 for that isn't too shabby, and it's another one with free delivery there pretty much globally. Moving forward, we can see other alternatives to that board, some of them in bundles, not all of them, again, primarily listed as a Black Friday promo, and that's something to bear in mind with AliExpress, by the way. Some listings have that Black Friday promo banner. I don't know if they're charging vendors to be listed, I don't know, but there's lots of instances where I found pretty decent offers for some of these options. This is that 10 gig 2x2.5 GBE board with a 3 M.2 on board, not listed as a Black Friday promo. Again, factor in the delivery for this one, but still there are some decent options just because they're not listed by this silly Black Friday banner from them. Moving forward, this isn't strictly a DIY NAS MoBo, and I understand I'm breaking a few rules by including it, but this thing at 363 is a complete good to go NAS solution when it's got 4 M.2 bays on there. It has SODIMM memory to play with. It's got 2 2.5 gig network ports, and it is available in both the N150 and the 8-core N355 version. So if you want, you can go for the N150 at 222. Bear in mind, 210 was just for that MoBo, and yes, it's 10G, but for 222 you have a complete NAS solution. But more precisely, because this is actually a main mini motherboard and a sister board for the storage, you can buy this and either use the whole thing because it's fanless and use its own integrated heatsink, or just dismantle it. So I include it here because I genuinely think this is a decent little potential deconstruction item that you can use towards other things in your custom NAS setup. I'd love to take this apart and stick it inside a PlayStation 1 chassis. Next up, Erying. Now, Erying's a brand I used to talk about quite a lot, but they've really slowed down a lot of the options in their marketing. And although there are some options from them, have a look at this one here, for example. Again, a lot of their NAS stuff isn't even just not on Black Friday promo. Most of it doesn't even have promotional offers. I wonder about over in China where they're sitting between the likes of Topton and CWWK there. They've kind of gone a bit quiet. They've got some stuff on Amazon, but again, very little promos. Back to CWWK, on the other hand, there is still a lot of promotions on a lot of their goodies, whether it is you're going for some of those PFSense/OpenWRT router boxes there, or some of their NAS motherboards. Some of these prices, by the way, are just stupid. Meanwhile, and again, I'm playing very fast and loose with the rules today, aren't I? This is an ancient kind of refurb MoBo, not unusual, but I wanted to include it for those that wonder about these things. This is a refurbished 2 CPU potential motherboard X-Server refurb for $118. But the reason it's breaking my rules isn't even that it's refurb, it's that it's 2 1 gig NICs. So technically it shouldn't be in this video, but I include it because there are some users that are more than happy to buy refurb. And this is a great example of those that want to run a multi-CPU cluster to play with there, and again with tons of M.2 storage space to play with and lots of DDR4 memory potential as well. You could build something up quite interesting, and there are some pretty interesting alternatives right now, and I've never heard of the Machinist, but they're all over this, for options for those that want to have multi-CPU failover clusters there. So again, something to keep in mind. Now, I know a number of you are wondering, I've spoken a lot about Intel, what about AMD? Well, this board right here, taking advantage of that Ryzen 7 8845HS, a CPU we've seen used in several different turnkey NAS, DIY with optional OS NAS solutions in 2025. This supports USB 4, it supports 9, bit of a weird number, SATA drives. It's got 2 Gen 4 M.2 NVMe bays there, and alongside that, it has 3 network interfaces. 2.5 gig, which will be disappointing for some, but at the very least, we have got that support of multiple network connections there, and it's still rocking out as an MITX board. It does take advantage of those SFF fanouts, and it is probably a little bit more power hungry than some of the options we've spoken about, but with a x16 physical slot and pretty much everything you're going to be looking for in an AMD low profile, high ability NAS build for DIY, this is a great little option. I would say this silly pricing discount here is a bit Mickey Mouse, but it's not a terrible price for that board, especially when you start factoring in some of the promo codes like the ones we've already discussed at this point. But moving forward from there, we can talk about this. This is another board that's taken advantage of that same CPU, the 8845, at a not dissimilar price point, but this time factoring in 2 times 10 gig networking. Sorry for the pause, I was trying to find it there on the page. Again, multiple M.2s to play with. It even still has the PCIe upgrade slot. Again, a little bit more feature rich with USB 4 support as well compared to the other board, but rather than having the 3 2.5 gigs, we're going straight into 10 gigabit networking there. But with the added benefit, as you can see, it does still have 2.5 gig and 10 gig on the rear. And for those considering little compact router or OpenWTP Sense deployments alongside Proxmox, maybe running side by side, there is a range here of more affordable AMD older generation Ryzen options here that, again, are not listed as Black Friday promos, but for their scale and what you're getting in terms of storage, in terms of 10 gigabit networking, and still support of M.2 at such a compact level, there's a lot to love here. And again, different CPU combinations readily available with free delivery as well. Now, you could, again, go back over to Amazon and look at some of the options from the likes of Gigabyte, MSI, but a lot of these motherboards, although they're great for hosting just internal base operations, as mentioned, when it comes to network connectivity, a lot of them are limited to single 2.5 gig and even still 1 gig network connections. So you end up with much bigger motherboards that for NAS deployments are just not suitable for more compact chassis. They're not completely unsuitable, of course they're not. You've got huge potential and they're available, and outside of regions like China that numbers of users are not overly keen on purchasing from. But still nonetheless, in terms of compact NAS deployment, and especially at MITX levels as well, there's very few options, I would argue, for the parameters we've set in today's video. Again, some are out there, like that AMD A845 that we talked about with the two 10 GBEs. There are promos to be had, but they're not vastly better than the AliExpress ones we've discussed, and they don't factor in some of those promo codes. You can head over to things like Topton, where some options are listed directly on their own website, but notwithstanding that sometimes their pricing structure is a little odd and you get worse prices, by the way, than you do on AliExpress, a lot of these options are generally not available and are not in stock. So check them out, but maybe for guidance, and then see how they compare on other sites. But this has been the best promos during Black Friday for DIY NAS motherboards that we've discussed here on the channel, are ones that I would personally recommend. Obviously later this week we're going to do a larger video that covers all the global regions like we always do. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for supporting what we do. And again, if you found any of this video helpful, you're going to consider buying any of the things we've discussed, and you were going to go to the shops listed in the description anyway, please use the links. It supports what we do and it allows us to keep the lights on. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.